Hello there, it's Break the Silence and I am Mercy Makinde. Today we'll be talking about the effects of child sexual abuse. It's a common thing for parents who get reports of their children being abused to just sweep it under the carpet and feel, oh, it's happened, let's move on. After all, you didn't die, thank God. And they don't sit down and think of the effects of those kind of abuse on their children. On today's show, I have a doctor in the house who is going to take us through the path of realizing and recounting the effects of the damage of child sexual abuse and how much it can have a long-term or even a short-term effect on the child. And with me in the studio today is Dr. Oshodi. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very
I'll
much.
quickly run through your profile. Dr. Oshodi is a consultant psychiatrist, a child and adolescent psychiatrist at the Lagos University Teaching Hospital. That's LUTH, right?
Yes.
And she's also a senior lecturer in the Department of Psychiatry of the College of Medicine, University of Lagos. That's my school. Unilag. Dr. Oshodi is currently the president of Association of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, an allied profession in Nigeria. Wow. I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
And she's also had several years of experience in the practice of psychiatry and the subspecialty of child and adolescent psychiatry. What does that mean, ma?
That means that I'm, first of all, a doctor.
Okay.
Then I specialize to be a psychiatrist.
Okay.
And I subspecialize in child and adolescent psychiatry.
So you focus on children and adolescents. Yes. Oh, great. How would you categorize the effect of child sexual abuse? Like, can you break them down into categories? Like, okay, we have the physical effects, or I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's a very interesting and important topic that we're talking about today. And the effects of child sexual abuse, I think just for ease of remembering what the areas can be, we'll say that first of all, you can have physical effects. These are the immediate things that you see. But then you can also have psychological effects, behavioral effects, and all these could be immediate and long-term. And also there are a few syndromes that have been linked with people who've been through sexual abuse, you know, abuse generally and then sexual abuse in particular. You know, yes.
So could you now itemize those effects? So let's take let's
do the physical first.
The physical.
Okay, because that's the first thing that most people run and they, you know, they're usually amazed about, you know. A child that has been sexually abused could obviously be found crying, you know, and could have physical lacerations and scars, depending injuries. Sorry, I'm using these big words. You know, injuries. Oh,
you're a doctor, it's expected.
Yes, injuries and tissue tears. You know, because if there has been some attempt at penetration, you know, either vaginal sex in the case of the female, or even anal, in the anal region, you know, in the case of both the female and the males, you know. And of course, there could be injuries in other parts of the body, depending on how violent the assaulter was or the abuser was. And those could be, but we must remember that child sexual abuse is not always, it doesn't necessarily always involve physical touch.
Yes.
You know that there could be other types of abuse that there's no physical contact at all.
So
those bruises are really, really emotional. They're sort of invisible.
So that takes
bruises.
us to emotional effects.
That takes us to, yes, these emotional effects, which include psychological and behavioral. The psychological ones would be the child, you know, will experience a lot of fear, you know, a lot of anxiety, feelings of shame and guilt, almost feeling a bit responsible in some situations, you know, that maybe they actually caused it or they're responsible or they, you know, they contributed to what happened to them. There could also be other things like feelings of sentimental, you know, support to the assaulter, where they actually...
Support?
Yes, where they, I mean, there's something that is called like the Stockholm Syndrome, where a victim can begin to try to protect the perpetrator.
Wow, is that the reason why most cases go unreported?
It's one of the reasons. It wouldn't be the only reason, because don't forget that many times the assault, I'm looking for the perpetrator, is that the word we should use? The abuser is known to the child.
Yes.
Is known to the child. Oftentimes that child has been sworn to some secrecy one way or the other. Either, you know, if you tell something's going to happen, I could go to jail, you know, or your family is going to break up if they ever got to know. So there's that sense of, you know, and at times the child has also been receiving gifts. So there's this kind of attachment. Loyalty to the individual. Nice this person has been nice to me. Auntie. Why would I want to do something wrong to the person? So that could be a bit of a conflict in the mind of of the child, the victim. You know, how do I manage this? You know, and at times they actually want to protect the person, the abuser. There are other psychological effects. The person could also experience, you know, some forms of dissociation, where they have to actually almost like have an out-of-body experience, not to feel what they are going through physically. So they protect themselves by, you know, being dissociated. It's a big word, but you find people...
Like self-denial?
It's not just self-denial. It's almost like living in another space. They've gone through this, and then they behave completely different to those around them. And it's almost like this person is detached, and people around don't really understand what's going on.
Repressing the feeling.
Yes, it's their way of coping with it. It's like a defense mechanism that they could utilize.
And
there are quite a few other...
has a long-term effect on the child.
It will have a long-term effect, because at the end of the day, this is like a coping strategy that this child is developing, and will show up in other, you know, situations.
Can it affect memory?
Yes.
Memory loss.
As a result of that, the child is trying to repress that experience, and obviously their memories become a bit, you know, distorted and patchy, and actually they may actually not even remember some of the parts of the episode as a way of coping with the nasty experience that they went through, because it's almost, it's too much to bear. So they have to manage it some other way. And the list is, the few things I mentioned, it's not exhaustive. There are obviously quite a few other things. The other thing
depression?
Those will be more of, should I say, behavioral things that you can find happening to the individual. They can then begin to have illnesses and symptoms that would result in certain things being observed, and we actually can make certain diagnoses, you know, anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms.
How serious, how grievous are they? Because a lot of parents are home watching, and they probably have swept a case under the carpet, you know. We want to bring out things that they need to understand, that it could still be there. The fact that you've forgotten the issue doesn't mean that the issue is gone. And
you raise a very important point, which it not only goes to the parents, but also to caregivers. Everyone, because we've said it's okay, sorry, you know, everything's going to be fine now. It doesn't completely take away the residual effect that's going to stick with that child. Particularly if that child doesn't get the necessary intervention. This child could find it difficult to form relationships, to form trust, could actually become an adult who struggled with, you know, having secure relationships. So they cannot even enter relationships to maybe when they want to settle.
So because it affects them in adulthood?
In adulthood, definitely. The long-lasting effects goes into adults. They could actually become also promiscuous.
So it swings two ways. Either they don't like sex or they like it too much.
Not even that they like it too much. It's just like, it doesn't mean anything any longer, you know. So they're just, exactly, and I've done it, I mean, yes, so it doesn't mean anything. Remember, this is not just the child deciding I'm going to be like this. It's a psychological process.
So they don't have any control over...
I can't help myself anyway, so whatever, let it go on. The other thing that we must also realize is because of the risk of having gone through what they have gone through, they also become likely victims of future sexual abuse. So a person who suffered a child sexual abuse can also turn out to abuse other people. Not only that, they also are victims. They have repeat abuse.
Even as an adult?
Yes. You know, so having gone through one episode, you know, or several episodes, because we know that at times these things are continuous, and that's what we call the complex trauma issue syndrome, you know, where someone experiences trauma from a trust, someone that should protect you, maybe a father, you know, a brother, you know, an uncle, and it's called the complex trauma syndrome, that the individual can actually grow into having other manifestations.
Thank you so much. We'll just take a short break now. When we come back, we would still ask Dr. Oshode more questions. We'll look at more areas where parents can actually look out for and see the kind of harmful effects these child abuse issues can have on children. And then I would also have our second guest in the house, who is going to share her personal experience of child sexual abuse. Don't go away. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. It's still Break the Silence, and we still have Dr. Oshode in the house. All right, ma'am. Before we went on that break, you mentioned something about post-traumatic disorder. Now, can you shed more light on that? I keep hearing it all the time. Okay. Can you just tell us a little bit more about it?
Thank you. That's an important piece that can be the aftermath of any trauma. It's called post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah. Sorry, I missed
now,
that.
this is a kind of disorder that is usually diagnosed in individuals who've gone through stress, and it's usually diagnosed about after a month of that exposure to stress.
Oh, really?
It can. You can also have traumatic reactions that occur less than a month. Those will be acute stress reactions, you know, and essentially describes the kind of things that, or rather, let me describe the kind of things that you see in a PTSD. We call it PTSD for short.
Yeah.
You know, you can have hyperarousal symptoms where the individual is overly agitated, you know, about whatever they've gone through, or they get easily.
And this applies to the cases of child sexual abuse.
Yes, in the case of children and adolescents, you also have the diagnosis also happens in them, but the criteria are slightly different from that happens in adulthood. But if I can just run through it, you have the hyperarousal symptoms. That could include what I described earlier, or some irritability accompanying it. You can also have intrusive thoughts, where the individual has, you know, recurrence of that experience. They start having flashbacks where they see themselves going through what they had gone through before. Either maybe when they close their eyes, or they're just sitting, you know, they're not sleeping. They start going through, they can have nightmares. So they're re-experiencing that traumatic incident. They also have what we call avoidance, where they avoid situations or memories that bring them back to that experience, you know.
So if it happened in a house, for example,
they may want to avoid certain rooms or certain things, or even certain individuals also,
the
you know.
abusers.
So you find someone who is keeping away a little bit more, I don't want to go there, I don't want to go to so and so's house, you know. You may wonder, what exactly is that about, you know. So you have avoidance, and you can also have mood and cognitive symptoms. When we say cognition, we're talking about the thinking, you know, where this individual may become very teary, moody, touchy, and also you have cognitive problems. I also talked about the dissociation, where the individual is almost separated from their own selves, you know. So this, and of course the criteria, we have one or two of different ones, you know, and you put them together and we say this person has a PTSD.
Okay, so for all of the effects you've mentioned, is it the same for every person, every child?
It's not necessary that every symptom is going to replicate itself, but like I said, you're looking for, like we say, like the intrusive thoughts, you're experiencing it, having nightmares, having flashbacks. So you may have one child having flashbacks, the other one having nightmares about it. So, but you have different symptoms that fit into these categories, and then you say this is PTSD. You know, remember, PTSD is just one of the diagnoses that you can have. You can also have depression. Depression. You can have body identity issues, where the person suddenly begins, my body is, there's something wrong with my body, you know, I'm deformed, you know, or something, following that incident. Yes, you can have substance abuse problems that result from it. And it's almost an attempt to try and, let me just try and quench that memory of what I've had, and let me take something. Or even self-harming behavior. I've seen people who begin to cut themselves, they take a razor blade and actually scar themselves because it eases the pain. It's a bit bizarre, you know, because you wonder, how can cutting yourself ease the pain?
I was going to say that. So some parents might be watching us right now and they're thinking, all these are Oyibo problems. Nigerian children don't react to situations like this. What do you say to that?
Nigerian parents, children are going through this in this country. But because we have a lot of a hush-hush kind of thing, there's a lot of secrecy, there's a lot of family secrets. People don't want to be embarrassed, ashamed. We want to protect, but it's going on. So if you see your child behaving slightly different from what you know that child to be, as a good parent, you must explore. You see someone, maybe an adult who is paying particularly extra attention to your child more than other children. Just, not that you accuse them, but just double check and be sure that your child is safe.
Safe with that person.
You know, exactly. And, you know, at times say it's my brother, nothing can happen. No, we shouldn't do that. You know, it's really, it's not right. You must always double check and be sure that
you don't trust nobody.
Yes.
Okay, so we're saying this now, that on national TV, that look, all of these symptoms can affect a Nigerian child.
They do affect Nigerian children.
It's
happening.
It's already happening.
We're seeing kids with it. We're seeing them, though we're not seeing the numbers because they're all hidden in the communities. But we're seeing cases, and it is happening.
It's happening. Okay, so when this happens, what treatment is there for a child having all of these effects?
Yeah.
And again, you pointed out that it's not just about now. They can carry this effect into adulthood, so it's a long-term thing. Yeah. What help is there?
Okay, just before I talk to that question about the help, when we are talking about the long-term effects, there's been a study done once about adverse childhood experiences and the long-term effects. Would you believe that some of these experiences can actually predispose someone to cancers as in adulthood? Exposure to an adverse childhood experience such as sexual abuse.
So we'll go on a short break now. When we come back, we'll bring our next guest, who is actually a victim, but I like to call them victor of child sexual abuse. Don't go away. Welcome back. It's still Break the Silence, and Dr. Shudi is still here. However, we have an additional guest on set, and her name is Ebere Flora. Ebere, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Like I said earlier, before we went on the break, Ebere here is a victim of child sexual abuse. But I prefer to call them victors because they overcame a very terrible situation, something very traumatic. And she's strong enough to come on set here today to talk about it. So truly you're a victor and you're welcome on the show.
Thank you very much.
I must say you're very courageous.
Thank you.
Now, I would like you to share your story. Just take it from there. Tell us your story. What happened?
Okay, it happened when I was 3.
Okay.
We stayed in the north back then when I was still a kid, and I had this uncle who was very, very fond of me. And because I was this very shy type of person, I didn't have friends around because I couldn't speak the northern language.
Yeah, you couldn't speak Hausa.
So I was friends with my uncles and the adults around me. And most times I go to my uncle's place to watch cartoons because my mom is always in front of the TV watching one Indian movie or another. So one afternoon, my mom was in the parlor watching the usual Indian movies, our Ghanaian neighbors. And I went to my uncle's place to watch my usual cartoons. And I saw his friend, but it was someone I knew. I knew him before then, so there was nothing. I had nothing to think about it, and I sat down as usual to watch. And he was going to have his bath.
Who's he now? Your uncle?
My uncle was going to have his bath. And while I was sitting down there, I was sitting on the floor because I used to sit on the floor. I liked sitting on the floor, and he was on the bed, a very high bed.
That's the friend now.
His friend. And when my uncle got in to have his bath, he heard the door lock, and I felt a hand grab me.
From behind?
From the behind. He placed me on his lap and unzipped himself, brought out his penis and put it on my hand. As a child, I was like, what am I supposed to do with something this big? And I was just looking at him, and he kept on touching me, squeezing my body, holding my nipple, pressing it hard, and it was so painful because I don't understand what was happening. And in my head, I was like, this thing is wrong. I knew I was doing something wrong. And he just kept on using my hand to hold it, and I was trying to struggle. And when he heard the bedroom was unlocking, he just threw me from the bed to the floor. Just to the floor, and I fell. When I fell, my body, landing on the floor, on the bed floor from the bed, I just ran out. I ran away. I ran out. I didn't even want to know if my uncle was coming in. I wanted to tell my mom, but it's not as if she's not going to believe me. It's more like I might put someone in trouble, or I don't know. I just
exactly
don't know. I didn't know what to. I don't know if I'm going to put my uncle in trouble or his friend, or I'm the one who's going to be in trouble. I was like, Mommy, and she was like, yes, nothing. I just entered inside, and she could not. There's no how she will ask me, what do you want to tell me, because I'm always withdrawn. So, but I know that after that incident, my life changed. I was more withdrawn. I'm always on my own. I have trust issues, and the fact that sometimes when this normal thing that men will see and want to like, how do I, seeing a girl on the way and approach me, I always see them like someone is trying to objectify me, and it's how I healed, I don't know, but that's just.
And you think you've healed?
I don't think I've healed. I think I mostly suppressed the memory though, because I just told my mom last year. And why I told her was because I was trying to get
You only just told her last year?
Yes, I was trying to know how old I was when something like that happened. It keeps flashing back. And I was
so how old were you when it happened?
I was 3.
So from what your mom told you?
Yes, because I asked her where, because we moved to 2 places before we came to Lagos. My dad finally told us to come to Lagos to join him. I asked her how old was I when we were at that particular area, and she was like, why am I asking? I told her nothing, and she was like, why are you asking? I was like, look at what happened. And she was like, how did you go through something like that without even letting anybody know? And she was like, I was 3. And how can I still remember something?
I was going to ask you
something
that.
Like
so
that.
How did it stay in your mind, in your head?
I have an elephant brain.
Elephant memory.
How do you brain of an elephant? I remember something way back. I don't forget. I'm not.
So do you think it's having any effect in your life now? That experience, is it affecting your life now?
Apart from the fact that it made me aggressive while growing up, because I knew my mom was like, you've changed. When I was growing up, the fear of men coming, and I just started acting out. I became aggressive, and I hate when someone is looking at me, I'm like, why is this one looking at me like this?
That's
tomorrow
now.
Something like that,
yeah.
Yes.
So you're thinking tomorrow now you'll come touching me?
Yeah, something like that, and the fact that what's that?
Can you have a relationship? Are you in a relationship now?
Right now, I'm not in a relationship.
And it's been a challenge?
I wouldn't say the stuff had to do with the relationship, because I really, really tried to suppress it, and I didn't really want to let it affect my relationship.
So you're still suppressing it as we speak?
But yes, I'm still suppressing it, and it keeps flashing. But I think one of those things that one of the things that affected my relationship with it was maybe always seeking attention.
That's your ex now?
Yes, because sometimes you feel it's like I'm lonely, and I just want to seek for attention. Maybe that's the only way I can act. Maybe acting out, and I'll seek for attention and something like that.
Okay, so Dr. Shodi, what do you have to say to?
First of all, I want to tell her that you're courageous and brave to talk about it, first of all, and to have sat with those feelings for years, and to commend your courage,
Thank you.
And I suspect that what you are saying, there are many people listening that have gone through that and will also be able to identify with it. She's spoken about quite a few things,
Yes, some of the things
the
you mentioned.
irritability, acting out, spending time with her uncle. At times, one important thing, at times the perpetrators will groom their victims. Not that your uncle was a perpetrator, but I'm just saying that person, you had met him before, he may have even observed you that this is a possible target. It's very unlikely he just decided to do it at
that moment. Yeah,
so he may have thought about it. This child now trusts me. This child is very shy. Maybe will not say anything. She says she was a very withdrawn child. So it's almost like a bit of profiling. You understand that?
Profiled her. She's going to keep
that
quiet.
This is a good one, and she's a good target, And unfortunately, people can fall prey to those kinds. So it's nice for parents to be alert. You see someone, like we had said earlier on, and also your child becomes different, one must inquire what's going on, did anybody do anything, and it has to be a safe and trusting environment.
Well,
there's so much.
I could let you go on and on, but we have to go. I mean, time is not on our side. It's been a very sober way to end the program today. I salute your courage again,
Thank you very much.
I'm really happy that you can come out to share your story with viewers at home, because I'm sure a lot of people would take something home from your story. You want to say something quickly?
Yes, I'm really sorry to butt you. I think on a sober note, but then on a good note, that there is opportunity for help.
Yes. I believe there are several other people out there like Ebere who have gone through situations like this, and they need avenues to speak up so that they can heal. Take advantage of this platform, share your story, talk to other people, seek professional help. When you do this, you're breaking the line of freedom and you'll feel better. It's easier to heal that way. I would encourage you, if you're watching this show, speak up and break the silence. Thank you.